Hi everyone, I thought I would do a really quick video to support you when writing application essays. Now, my plan was to go through a sex ethics application essay, but I don't have any. So I've had to go to plan B, which is go through two from the first year, one for business and one for euthanasia. Because once you have the application structure, it works for all essays. So once you have the structure in your answer, it doesn't matter whether you're applying natural law to euthanasia or Kant to homosexuality, you're still applying. You're still applying. So the technique works the same. So I'm going to go through this. There is another video available, a live stream I did last year, last lockdown, going through more of how application questions look, how to structure them, what to put in each of the questions. So do check out that live stream as well to help you. But this one, I'm just going to go through a couple of essays, a couple of starts of essays to give you an idea of how to do it. So let me make myself smaller and we'll get started. Okay, so I'm going to start with the Kant and duty business first. So let's make this bigger. I'll just make this bit bigger as right. Fabulous. Hopefully you can see that all okay. The question is, Kant's concept of duty cannot be applied to issues with business ethics. Now, first of all, when it comes to application, the application are the hardest questions. Why? Because you're juggling two arguments. You're not just juggling Kant, you're juggling Kant and business ethics. This is quite a tough question. Why? Because it's very specific. It wants Kant's duty, which means that you have to very cleverly link all parts of Kant's argument, whether it is goodwill or the universalizability, back to duty and then to business ethics. So with this, the structure throughout is Kant. Every paragraph starts with Kant's duty, whether that's Kant's duty goodwill, Kant's duty universalizability, Kant's duty autonomy, whatever it might be, Kant's duty is what starts every paragraph. And then every paragraph needs a business theme. If you just talk about business in general, it will become very confusing. So you need to break down business into themes. So go over your business PowerPoint, your business notes, etc., and just pick out themes. Are you talking about sweatshops or globalization or corporate social responsibility? So you need a theme per paragraph, and you just apply Kant's theme to the business theme. That's the easiest way of doing it. Be very, very specific what each of your paragraphs' themes are. That will then help you keep control over your essay. So let's have a look. Kant's concept of duty cannot be applied to issues within business ethics. So, according to Kant, duty is about about doing what is right for no other reason than because it is the right thing to do, regardless of consequences. He says duty involves freely choosing the action. Therefore, in terms of the word applied, can the disregard of emotion and personal gain be applied when businesses choose their actions? This essay will discuss why Kant's ethical way of carrying out your duty overall cannot be applied to issues within business ethics. Now, there's nothing fancy about that introduction. You haven't really got any information about Kant. You know, he doesn't say German philosopher Kant. It doesn't say, he says, in the groundwork for the metaphysics of morals. You know, there's none of those little extra bits. However, it is very, very clever still. Why? The bit that I like is that bit there, where it says, therefore, in terms of the word applied. Now, that is very clever. Why? Because it's going directly back to the question. It is taking the words in the question apart. What does it mean when you're applying Kant's theory to business? But rather than just repeating exactly what he's already, or she's already said, I don't know if it's male or female, what they've already said, they're then bringing this extra little bit of information, the disregard of emotion and personal gain. There's a confidence there in how they're writing. They know Kant, they know Kant's argument, and that's quite clear from that answer. So they're talking about there, how can you apply this idea when you disregard emotion and personal gain to businesses? So it brings it back to the question again. And that rhetorical question adds that critical tone. This essay will discuss why Kant's ethical way of carrying out your duty overall cannot be applied. Line of argument, nice and clear, they're against Kant. So I know straight from the beginning that there is a critical tone there, they're going to go against Kant's argument, that they have an understanding there. And look how short it is. I know as an examiner, this student knows Kant. They know Kant well, but they don't. There's no waffle there. Sometimes your introductions are a bit too long. Get to the point. One thing you'll notice when you go to university and you get word count. Word counts make your writing better. Sometimes, I know I always say make sure your essays are two pages in length, or two and a half, but that's because if it's anything longer than that, you're not getting to your point, you're not doing it quick enough. Sometimes actually being succinct in your points shows that high AA star quality. So let's continue. An argument which supports why Kant's concept of duty cannot be applied to issues within business ethics focuses on the first formulation of the categorical imperative, an act that is good in itself and is not dependent on what someone may wish, universalisability. That's a really nice start. Why? Because the line of argument is there at the beginning. You know that they're going to be looking at Kant's concept of duty, they're linking it to the categorical imperative, universalisability. They actually placed it, worded it properly, the first formulation of categorical imperative. They're not being lazy. They haven't just said Kant's concept of duty, universalisability. They've actually placed it within the argument that it falls under. And I know as an examiner again that it's going against duty. This is where businesses, for instance, have a duty to act only according to that maxim by which you can at the same time will that it become a universal maxim, meaning that they should only follow through with their actions if they are certain it would be okay if that action was universalised. And to recognise this in our intentions of an action keeps us in line with our duty and helps us to be moral. Now, couple of things about that, and this is again one of the reasons why I say please read your essays out loud to yourself. It's a very good sentence, but that's one sentence. Please keep your sentences shorter. So again, this is a good way to learn how it sounds when you're hearing somebody else's work. Could you follow that? Could you follow that sentence? No. That's how I feel sometimes when I read your essays. They're really hard to follow when your sentences are of such long length. That's why proofreading and reading aloud really emphasize. I don't mean like project yourself. I mean just read it to yourself like this. How does it sound out loud? Because often the out loud voice is how it reads to somebody else. However, by the by, that's a very, very good sentence. Why? Because again, we've linked it straight back to business. They could have just gone straight into the maxim and forgot about business, but then the questions got left behind. They've linked it to businesses and this idea of linking the maxims back to a business. I'm not a fan of the word okay. I think that you could use the word acceptable. Acceptable is far better. So listen, if they are certain it would be okay if that action, or if they are certain it would be acceptable if that action. Acceptable just sounds better. So, universalise and to recognise this in our intentions of an action keeps us in line with our duty, again link back to duty there, and helps us be moral. However, so, we have got line of argument, we've got theme for paragraph, we've linked it to question, and now we have evaluation. All within 2, 4, 6, 8 lines. However, a business's major corporate social responsibility, a business's responsibility towards the community and the environment, of looking after the environment becomes problematic here, as fast fashion such as ASOS and Boohoo.com clearly does not satisfy this. Fabulous. Fabulous. Wow. This student has control. This student has understanding. We have gone straight in for corporate social responsibility, CSR. That is one of the harder ones because it just sounds wordy. It's not actually that difficult, but students often, it's easier to talk about sweatshops than it is to talk about social responsibility. They're given an example, ASOS and Boohoo. Again, it can be any examples. Examples really give your essay substance. I'll probably go with this as a girl now though from that choice. And look after the environment. So we've got the critical word there as well. So not only have we got the however, which is implying a problem, we've actually got the critical term as well, that it's problematic. And this idea of fast fashion. So it's clear there what the criticism is. Fast fashion companies cut environmental corners due to the pressure of speed and low costs. They've explained what they mean by fast fashion. So they've taken to that next step. Therefore, if businesses approve of the maxim of using toxic chemicals for textile dyeing, the second largest polluter of clean water globally, which they are doing through fast fashion, whether they are admitting it or not, what they are actually doing is universalising that action. Fabulous. We haven't done about fast fashion. That student has gone out of their way. They've done wider research, wider reading, they have wider understanding. Wider means better. And so for them, all of that is the same point. All of that is evaluation. All of that is your AO2. They are evaluating and then extending that point there. And they're keeping it always to that theme, this idea of maxim, this idea of universalising. They've not gone off that theme. This whole paragraph's on that theme. So I know as a reader where they're going, what they're saying. They're giving an example, they've linked it to business, and they've done it with control. Very, very nice. This is a reason why Kant's concept of duty just simply cannot be applied here in this issue of business as an example of things which should not be universal. Refraining from helping others is totally ignored, and they've linked it back to Kant and why Kant's duty does not work. For instance, another example. Wonderful. For instance, polyester, a popular fabric used by fast fashion companies, sheds microfibers that add increasing levels of plastic into our oceans, which humans end up eating in fish food. This is a way fast fashion is universalising the refrain from helping others. Still, perhaps fast fashion are satisfying their corporate social responsibility through the way they are, in fact, helping others. Mainstream consumers can buy clothes for lower price. Does this therefore suggest that Kant's concept can be applied here, as helping others seems like a right maxim which should be universalised? No. This argument is weak and forgets that the environment is being destroyed, and this continues to be universalised. The earth would fail to exist, which means consumers would not have a chance to buy clothes at all. It is obvious that fast fashion companies' maxim of destroying the earth is not right, and businesses are ignoring their duty of not universalising it. They have failed in their corporate social responsibility of looking after the environment here. Kant says that if you feel like you shouldn't be doing it, you should not do it. Clearly, fast fashion companies are ignorant of this. Therefore, there is no way that Kant's concept can be applied to this issue within business ethics. Wow. Pretty much the rest of that paragraph had an evaluative tone. Why? Because it was going backwards and forwards to their line of argument. When your line of argument is the core throughout, your essay automatically becomes evaluative. So there was nothing in there that really screamed, this is a strength, this is a weakness, or critical words. It's the way that it synchronises itself around their argument, and they kept their theme clear. Fast fashion. They gave examples for fast fashion throughout. Wow, that's a mouthful. And they kept it clear throughout on that maxim. That is a fantastic paragraph. Fantastic paragraph, because they keep it simple. When you keep it simple, so by your theme simple and clear, it actually works in the better. So very, very good example there. I'm not going to continue the essay, however, but I imagine if I do keep going, then the themes, so the theme there straight away is globalisation. And I'm guessing that the whole of that paragraph is on globalisation. Yep, I'm seeing the word globalisation throughout. I'm seeing examples, statistics, things about factory work, etc. Next paragraph theme is, we've gone back to shareholders. So shareholders now to do with corporate social responsibility. Payroll, that's to do with shareholders. However, cancelling the duty stakeholders. And in conclusion, 2 pages long, clear themes in every paragraph, and an evaluative tone line of argument throughout. Fabulous essay. Okay, so let's have a look at a natural law for euthanasia. When it comes, let me just have a rest for a second from reading that. When it comes to sex ethics, you do exactly the same. If your theme has been picked for you, so homosexuality, premarital or extramarital sex, if it's been picked for you, every paragraph's on homosexuality or every paragraph's on adultery. If it isn't, I recommend you talk about 2 and interchange them. Don't talk about all 3. You're juggling too much there. So just pick 2 of the 3 and interchange them in your paragraphs. If It's specific on, for example, natural law. Every paragraph starts with natural law. Every paragraph has a clear theme, whether it's hierarchy, doctrine of double effect, and then that links to homosexuality or premarital or whatever it is, and that's how you do it throughout. You can be specific within those themes as well, so you can be specific about homosexuality, you could be specific about premarital sex, whatever it might be. But I would say only ever juggle one theme and one theme at a time. So one theme in natural law, one theme in Kant, one theme in utilitarianism, one theme in homosexuality or premarital sex or whatever it might be. Only juggle. Don't try and compare within paragraphs. Don't, unless you are very, very confident in your writing, because comparison, if you are looking at natural law, you're talking about homosexuality, you then compare it to another theory like situation ethics, you're then juggling three things. So you can do it just by looking at two, and then your next paragraph, if the question is open, so no ethical theory, pick another ethical theory that is either better or worse than the one above. And so if the question is no ethical theory is helpful with premarital sex is your theme throughout, so then I'd again pick two topics out of your four for sex. So pick two, one that's really good and one that's really bad, and compare them in different paragraphs throughout to say this is better than this because this works and this avoids this problem because, etc. So always try and juggle only a couple of themes, a topic and a theme at a time. So let's have a look at this question. Natural law provides a helpful approach when dealing with issues surrounding euthanasia. Again, we are specific with natural law, specific with euthanasia, and we've got our critical word there of helpful that we would use throughout. So, Ulpian, Roman jurist of the 3rd century AD, states, jura lex sed lex. No idea if my Latin is correct there. Your nice broad Yorkshire Latin, which is Latin for the law is harsh, but it is the law. This highlights ideas that rule of law and its principles must be followed and enforced, and if one disagrees with the result, one must seek to change the law. This can be seen in the way Aquinas produced a new ethical construct of natural law, which stemmed from the main ethical principle of the time, divine command theory. However, can this new law based on ethical system be seen as helpful? Who is to judge what qualifies as helpful when dealing with issues surrounding euthanasia? These questions of the integrity of natural law when applied to ethical issues and the helpfulness it grants will be discussed in this essay. Very, very nice. Again, they found a quote that is different. They found a quote, they've started with something that they haven't just learnt in lesson. They've found something different. They've explained what it means, this highlights. They then linked it to Aquinas and showed understanding and knowledge of Aquinas and how Aquinas was trying to create a new law to avoid what was current at the time, which is divine command theory. The bit that I love, as students know, is I like questions like that. You've got the link to the question there with the word helpful. They've linked in what they're arguing. So all of that is then linked to that question with that clever bit of new. If you just dump in a quote and then don't link it to the rest of your paragraph, you're not going to be in those high-end marks. But what they've done there is they've put can this new law, meaning what they've just said, based ethical system be helpful? Who is to judge? Fabulous question, because that's the question you need to ask throughout. Who is doing the judging? Who is judging whether it's helpful or not? So who is doing the judging? And then that word there, these questions of the integrity, that's lovely. It's not just these will be discussed in this essay. No, there's poeticness to the way that this student has wrote this. So there's a real understanding, a real knowledge, and a real good control over the use of language. This is why I always say to you, read exemplar answers. See how they've done it. Copy it, okay? So you learn through copying. Just don't copyright a textbook. All right, let's have a look. So, another long one. Here we go. Inspired by the science and nature of Aristotle, Aquinas combined science and reason with faith. This allowed Aquinas to create the inclusive theory of ethical thinking, natural law. This is where nature, which is made by God but works independently towards its own telos, decides the ethos of ethics, what is right and wrong. In addition to this, Aquinas believed we could use reason, a God-given gift, to work out the telos of an action. Therefore, combining our right use of reason with natural law helps us to make a fully informed decision when dealing with issues surrounding euthanasia and ultimately achieve our purpose in life, gain godlike perfection. Now, that is all quite descriptive. Well, it is descriptive. There's no line of argument at the beginning. There is no critical words in that. However, as a reader, I'm thinking, right, they've explained it. They've set the scene. I'm clear with what it is. They've showed their knowledge. They've showed their understanding. They've showed their control over the material. They've showed the technical terms. I would then expect pretty much the rest of that paragraph to be evaluation, an evaluative tone throughout the rest of that in order to get your 24 and your 16 marks. So let's have a look. I like the language used still in addition to this. That's nice. Anything else about that I like? And the link it to euthanasia there. So we haven't gone too far into it without linking it to euthanasia. This can be seen as convincing. Critical word. Due to the use and application of reason, this use of reason can be seen in the situation of euthanasia. For example, euthanasia may be the only way for a certain individual to achieve their telos and grow into the likeness of God. Specifically, this is reflected in the Alkmaar case. In the Netherlands, a 95-year-old woman could no longer eat and drink and asked her doctor to euthanize her. After the doctor had discussed this with her and her son, they concluded life was unbearable, so he agreed to end her life. This clearly emphasises a strong use of the doctor's reason, linking it back to the theme of their paragraph. Reason is their theme, so we've got the theme throughout. You've got the specific example there of euthanasia, so they're not just bumbling about euthanasia, they've got specific example. Doctor's reason when he decided to euthanize the elderly woman and raised the thought-provoking question of whether he used this reason correctly. In addition to this, there is issue of quality of life, so we've got a specific theme within euthanasia, as the doctor clearly had to assess whether to honour the elderly lady's decision to die with dignity. As reason can be seen as a central part of the ethical framework, it can be credibly referred to as universal, as it can be accessed by anyone capable, with the capability of using reason. Again, you've got your critical word there to support your line of argument. However, Karl Barth would definitely disagree with this, as he believes reason is fallible and trustworthy, as in the opinion of Barth, we should rely on divine revelation in scripture for right and wrong. This means that Barth would consider that natural law is an unhelpful and reliable approach when making decisions, especially in regards to euthanasia. In contrast, Aquinas would confidently refute this, as he unites faith with reason, meaning that aspects of religion and by digression scripture, making the cohesion of the two factors an effective and helpful means of making decisions in relation to euthanasia. Furthermore, natural law. Okay, so with this paragraph is about a high B. This paragraph would not be an A grade. Why? Because there's not enough evaluation in it. The student has made the mistake that I always mention. Can you spot the mistake? Why is this description and not evaluation? If you're now saying because they've name dumped at the bottom, you are correct. By putting Karl Barth in there, yes, he does disagree, but you're describing his argument. And in contrast, Aquinas would confidently refute this. Yes, Aquinas would, but you're still just stating it. Yes, the idea of confident refute is a bit of a critical tone to it, because someone could say, well, it's not very confident, etc. So you could argue against that. But for me to get into those A's, they would need to engage with these views more to say which argument is more convincing, which argument works better, etc. So this paragraph has got a little bit bogged down in description. However, you can still see how they've kept to the theme. They've kept to the theme of reason. They've they've linked it to euthanasia. What they probably could have done is just talked about the Alkmaar case and left quality of life for the next paragraph, where again they've brought in another theme, which then leads them astray by bringing in a name as well. Yes, they're showing knowledge and understanding, but it means that this paragraph then becomes very complex. They're juggling an awful lot of arguments here. So if you remember from the previous one with business, they kept it to the same argument throughout. They didn't bring any extra names in. When you start to bring extra things in, you then make your life more complicated. So there's a lot of themes going on in here. It's still a good paragraph. It's still a very good paragraph, but it's very complicated. For me, I would have kept it to the theme of reason. I would have kept it with the example of the 95-year-old woman. And then I would have either picked quality of life or Karl Barth. I wouldn't have done both because I think there's a lot of now missed opportunities in that paragraph as well. So, for example, quality of life is more Peter Singer than Karl Barth. Karl Barth is talking about the hierarchy moral code of divine law, but Aquinas actually does recognise this within his hierarchy. So I'd have probably brought Karl Barth in with the hierarchy of law, which is where the student's going later on. So I think that they've tried to, and this again is a weakness, not a weakness, weakness is the wrong word. This is a downfall of what some students do in their essays that I read quite often, is you try and cram everything into the first paragraph. Take your time. Take your time. You have all your cards in front of you. You know everything you're going to talk about. Do a little plan so you don't kind of vomit, for a better word, all of your stuff into the first paragraph. There's too much in that first paragraph for me, and it means that they've lost out on those top marks. If we continue down, you can see that the hierarchy, moral code, weak sanctity of life, so we've got a thing in there. This one is parrot and real goods. This was primary, secondary precepts, quite brave to do them all in one paragraph, synderesis rule, and then conclusion. So again, the themes are clear from the beginning. I would like a bit of a stronger line of argument at the beginning of the paragraphs, like you saw in the previous essay, etc. But again, this one would be, middle to high B grade just from the outset. But to get it into that A, there needs to be a better evaluative tone. Hopefully you've found this useful. Again, apologies that I don't have a sex ethics one that I can go through, but the structure is exactly the same. The only difference is rather than dealing with euthanasia or business, you're dealing with an issue in sex. That's it. And obviously do not forget, when it comes to euthanasia, it is only natural or in situation ethics. When it's business, it is only Kant and utilitarianism. When it's sex ethics, it's all four. So you can apply all four to sex ethics. I obviously only recommend you comparing two. If the question is open, like no ethical theory is useful with sex ethics, do not try and do a paragraph on each. It just won't work. I think forget the higher levels, pick two theories, as I've said, that you think one is very good and one isn't, and then compare them critically throughout. That will give you a better evaluative tone. Thanks very much, everybody. Let me just make you smaller. Thanks very much, guys. See you later. Bye for now.